Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection, for a very special show today. I believe you have heard me say in several shows that we are showing a documentary, a movie. It's going to be a 6-episode documentary on Arizona's Mexican heritage by, well, let me complete it. Arizona's Mexican heritage, an American story, by Dr. Pete Dimas. And today we have Dr. Pete Dimas with us. I will be introducing Dr. Dimas in just a bit. Let me remind you that we are doing Facebook Live. This show is going out via radio on 1190 AM and 107.5 FM, and also at our Facebook page, AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. So please, if you haven't follow our page, I'm asking you to help us. We already exceeded 1,900 followers, and we are on our way to reach 2,000 before the year is over. So I'm really asking you to find us at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Find the page, like the page, and share it with family and friends, because we have brought you amazing topics, and we will continue to do that. Just simply like today, we are showing a documentary starting this Saturday, back-to-back Saturdays. It's going to be Arizona's Mexican Heritage by Dr. Pete Dimas in Glendale this Saturday, then in Phoenix on the 26th, and in Tempe on November the 2nd. All the details are on our Facebook page at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. We need you to register because we don't want to get 1,000 people there, and we only have capacity for 160 people in Glendale, 120 people in Phoenix, and 120 people in Tempe. So again, find the page and get all the details there. The links are there. You can pick and choose which one is best for you. And meet me and meet especially Dr. Pete Dimas on Saturday. We're going to be at Westgate. If you live in on the west side, you know what Westgate is. You know where Glendale is. It's literally by the stadium, the Cardinal Stadium. We're going to be there from... The movie starts from 4 to 5:30, but the doors open at 3:30, and we're going to start checking in people beginning at 3:30, and then we're going to have a little program with director and producer, Dr. Pete Dimas, starting at 4, and by 4:30, the movie's going to start, the documentary, episode 1. It's going to be very amazing, and now let me introduce to you my special guest, the director and producer of Arizona's Mexican Heritage, an American Story, Dr. Pete Dimas. Dr. Dimas, thank you so much. Congratulations on the first episode, and thank you for making time to be with us and talk to the audience about this first episode.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Thank you. First of all, I want to ask you just a few questions. Typically, the first segment is usually shorter because, we take a couple minutes to get it launched, etc. But would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? Who is Pete Dimas, your family? Have you been here from whenever? Or did you come from another country? I mean, who are the Dimas?
Well, I was born and raised in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. My dad was born on the Las Vegas land grant in New Mexico. Mm. And my mother was born along the Colorado River in the area of Blythe, California. Mm. She's descended from the Sonorenses of northern Sonora, southern Arizona. So as far as my family is concerned, the border crossed us
That's definite. That's
Yeah,
in reality.
that's in reality.
It's not a slogan for you.
Not at all. My dad's family goes back to the late 16th century, and definitely from 1693 on.
Amazing, amazing. So you were born again where?
In Phoenix.
In Phoenix. You went to school here. You did everything here.
That's correct.
So how does it feel for your family to be here or have been here for centuries, literally?
Well, personally, it's just a natural order of things.
Right.
I was born and raised in Phoenix, so I didn't grow up in the New Mexico area. But one thing my dad had was a sense of history. And that sense of history, he always said, the real pioneers were us. And that's the way he said it. And of course, at that time, it's one side or the other, but you come to realize as you grow older that the frontier for some is really the home of others. So there's going to be a little bit of conflict and mixing the way frontiers are and the way they continue to be.
Right.
And so throughout my schooling, from a young boy on, I was wondering how come, if that's true, how come they don't say that in school? You went through grade school, nothing.
Wow.
High school, nothing. When I took Arizona history as a graduate student at ASU, nothing. And which was, I thought was amazing because I knew there was something there.
Right.
And I knew there was a great undercurrent because when I was a graduate student in that Arizona history class, we took a look at census tracts, and I took a look at the census tracts on the east side of the Bradshaw Mountains, and the people there were overwhelmingly Mexicanos. So something definitely was missing.
Right. So obviously this was, I guess we can say, done purposely, right? That they didn't want to, or somehow the history, this important part of the history was just not included in curriculum.
Yeah, it's just interesting because in Arizona, it wouldn't have started without the Mexicanos. It wouldn't have.
Right.
I mean, even the name, Arizona, that's really a Basque name, and which is part of the Spanish population. So, when you look at it and you see that you have all of this there and then excluded, there's an obvious reason there, and unfortunately that has to do with the fear that the Anglo population had against Mexicans, number one. Number two, real estate speculation was a major means of moving people across the country. And when the railroads arrive in Arizona, you're trying to entice people. You want them to think it's just an empty frontier with lots of opportunity.
So hiding certain things that doesn't match the speculation and all that, it's a strategy, I suppose.
Oh, it's a definite strategy. I think it was a 1920 publication of the Chamber of Commerce where, it's a pristine frontier with little or no Mexican influences. I mean, that's in their writing, so it's deliberate.
Right. I guess my second question, you pretty much answered. What motivated you to take the journey of history? Well, very, very natural, right?
Well, it's a natural consequence of looking for something is there, but it's not.
Right.
Well, it's not on the surface. So it wasn't until I studied history over and over again, trying to find, and you hear about the Mexican War, that's about it. And it wasn't until I got to ASU with Dr. Manuel Servin, who started opening the door, and it just changed everything for me. It made things clear why things were the way they were.
Right.
It's very liberating situation. Instead of people telling you what happened, you understand what took place and where you fit.
We have to go on our first break. Dr. Dimas, have you been to Spain?
Yes.
Once, twice, more than that?
3 times.
3 times. How about to Mexico? Deep
Oh,
down,
yes. When I was teaching at Phoenix College, we used to go every summer to Guanajuato, which is in the old mining area.
Okay.
And so one of those large colonial cities that you find in central Mexico.
Of course, of course. Let's take our first break. Stay with us. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Our special guest today is Dr. Pete Dimas. He is the director and producer of Arizona's Mexican Heritage, An American Story, which AARP is going to be screening on 3 Saturdays back to back to back. This Saturday is the first one, Glendale, the 19th. From 4 to 5:30, but you need to register. Please visit our page at Facebook page at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection so you can register. I'm going to give you my phone number in case you can't register and you want to go. You can call me 480-414-7637, 480-414-7637. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. The topic today is Arizona's Mexican Heritage, An American Story. This is a documentary, 6-episode documentary by Dr. Pete Dimas. Number 1 is done and ready to go. Actually, Dr. Dimas went to the theater and tested it out. It's ready to go. We are ready. We're going to have a good time on Saturday in Glendale at Westgate. But again, if you want to go, you need to go to our Facebook page and register. All the information, there's a post there with actually a video, the flyers, everything is there, the links, and you can register to watch episode 1 in Glendale, Arizona's Mexican Heritage, An American Story by Dr. Pete Dimas. And, I know you already touched on this, Dr. Dimas, but let's just please say a little something, a little bit more on this concept you mentioned that it's liberating, to know your history is liberating. Is that what you said? And
yes,
it is. Can you
very much so.
Elaborate?
Because you see where you fit. You know what's been imposed upon you as the concept of who you are is somebody else's imposition on your own personality.
So when we talk about history, it literally touches your identity.
Oh, definitely.
If you have the wrong understanding of history, then you're thinking you're something that you're really not. And so once you really know your history, then you are liberated from that, and then you know who you are.
Right. I think Einstein basically said it: when there's a minority and a majority is subject to the whims of the majority. And it's to the point that even the minority starts taking on or believing what the majority is imposing upon them as far as their own self-esteem or their own vision of themselves. But, it goes much farther, especially when you come into Arizona, because you don't have to be a genius to look around and understand there's a demographic change that's coming big time. You can see it in the schools. I think it has something to do with how school funding is going now. That's another story.
Of course.
But the thing is that if you take a look at societies, they all have at the base, what holds them together is an underlying philosophical logic to it, to what it is. In the Spanish system, it was the idea that the king dispensed justice in the name of Jesus Christ. So you could be loyal to the king, knowing that if he knew what was happening, he'd be just.
Okay.
Of course, we understand that's the ideal.
Of course.
In our American system, I think you find it in the Pledge of Allegiance, with liberty and justice for all.
Of course.
Now, the problem is who the all is, because every society, understanding the underlying philosophical basis of it, has a national myth that ties into it. And historians are the ones that basically ties those disparate stories together to form that national myth, which is, again, I say, the shared story, how we talk about each other.
Right.
And if you're not in that story, then those who can will impose a certain will upon you. I mean, and some people may not like it, but 1070 is an example of it. The idea that Mexicans were taking over the state. You got to stop them. When the fact of the matter is that the whole the basis of prosperity of Arizona has been based on Mexican labor, Mexican people. I mean, that's something that people don't understand.
And you know, Dr. Dimas, I am so impressed at this matter of knowing the history, because it's liberating, you said, and then you will take on the real identity of who you are, and then, like sometimes Frank Barrios used to say, then there comes the pride of who you are. But if somebody's telling you that you're this and you really, then that could be, there's no sense of pride of who you are. You're always thinking that you're less, So that's where I consider how crucial it is that the history is told, the history is known.
I think it's even more important for the overall society, because when you look at it, if you have everybody understanding that they're all part of this, part of the social structure, then what you do is you make sure that the elements to make a better citizen and make a better human being, who make a more prosperous human being, makes a more prosperous society, one that can provide the resources that assist people in their retirement or assist in their needs, or assist in raising the resources to create the infrastructures that are needed for the betterment of the whole society. But if you think that the people are not part of your story, they're really taking resources from you. That's the interpretation.
Right. Dr. Dimas, do you believe that the Latino community, and more specifically the Mexican community, sometimes they don't see themselves as part of America, more like second-class citizens, and that maybe because of not knowing the history part, that contributes to not feeling really part of the American fabric?
I think that's an element. I mean, there's a lot of nuances in what you said.
Okay.
But not sensing that you're really part, not feeling that you're accepted, does draw you into other realms of how you deal with your existence. I mean, I believe that. So it's important that again, the story be part of the whole.
Right.
And when I went to high school, my dad, for the first time, went with me. And the advisor was there, and he says, Mr. Dimas, it's a good thing you brought your son to Phoenix Union High School, because we have a great program for him. It's called Work Study. What he does, he comes in the morning and learns his reading, his writing, and his mathematical skills. In the afternoon, we can place him in a gas station, so he learns how to work. He learns the possibilities of work. And of course, that told you what he thought my capabilities were without even knowing me. It's a generalization that was there.
Amazing.
And of course, my dad said, hell no. He said, he's going to be an electronics technician. But I didn't like that, but it sounded better than what the other option was.
Right.
And lucky for me, I was colorblind, so I couldn't go into electronics. So I ended up in history.
Right. And not only that, but you have a PhD.
Yes. And that's another interesting thing. When I went to ASU, the first time I spoke to an academic advisor there who was a professor of history, he asked me, why do you want to major in history? I said, because I like it. And he looked at me and says, my advice to you is to get out of history. Very few of us are fortunate enough to get paid for doing our hobbies.
Interesting.
And at that time, I had already been through the Navy, been through Vietnam and all that.
So you are a veteran.
Yes, I am.
You have served. You said Vietnam and what else?
Yeah, Vietnam. Yeah, a couple of tours there.
Okay.
But luckily for me, there was a new professor at ASU at that time by the name of Manuel Servin. And he taught Mexican-American history, and he taught it with, nobody was a saint. It looked like a real thing to me, and that really started opening up my eyes. It really made a difference for me.
The next question I would like to ask you, Dr. Dimas, is you seem to have, I sense a strong feeling about Mexican heritage. You really emphasize the Mexican part in Arizona. So when and how was the Arizona's Mexican heritage, an American story, conceived? When did you conceive the thought of doing a documentary? Because, I mean, you and I have spoken several times. Actually, you went to my house to show me episode 1 and 2, I think.
Well, I went over there and you told me that you had 10 minutes.
That's right.
And so I started showing you, and after 10 minutes, I said, well, okay, that's 10 minutes are up.
Right.
And you said, no, let me see the whole thing.
Right.
And then we were done with that. I said, okay, I'll see you later. So you asked me if I had another one, and we
Right.
saw episode 2.
Right. And then I went to your own home to see episode 3.
Yes.
And so how long have you been working on this, and how did you conceive the thought of doing Arizona's Mexican heritage, an American story? That to me is kind of a packed title.
Because it is an American story, number one. And I had been teaching at Phoenix College for 20 years. And I was retiring from Phoenix College. And so what do you do in retirement? And it struck me that in teaching Chicano history, Mexican-American history, American history, there was no conceptualized effort to tell the story of the statewide involvement of people of Mexican heritage in the creation and evolution, the development, and the future of Arizona. And then another thing, I could see where the demographics were going. I could see it clearly. I saw the transformations that were taking place at Phoenix College and other colleges across the state. And in my classes, my students would say, why is it that we have to wait until we're here before we even hear any of this stuff? Yeah? So I figured the best thing I could do at this point, being a retired person, is let's make a video. Well, I didn't know what I was getting into. We had done a short video, my brother and I, on the veteranos of World War II, but this was a whole different ballgame. I didn't realize that, unlike when you write a book, you can cite your sources. Here, I come to find out I have to pay the sources for use of the material in order to use it in a documentary. And that whole process took a lot of time.
Wow.
Not to mention the changes in technology that caused us to
You
change
told me
things.
that you even had to go and take a class on video editing.
Yes. So I could see what was happening, so I could cut down the time that was necessary. Okay, this is what's needed here. I could cut and paste and send it to people who are better at editing than me.
Right. Let's take another break. When we come back, I'm going to ask you the question about how the students that you taught, the reaction. I mean, what changes do you see in those students as they were beginning to understand the history? I would like to ask you that question. Stay with us. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Topic today is Arizona's Mexican Heritage, an American Story. We are showing episode 1 at Westgate this Saturday. If you would like to join, all you have to do is visit our page and register at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Is a Facebook page. All the links are there, and we hope to see you there. Stay with us. We have more on this amazing topic. We'll be right back. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The topic today is Arizona's Mexican Heritage, an American Story. This is a documentary by Dr. Pete Dimas. We will be showing episode 1 on 3 consecutive Saturdays in 3 locations, 3 cities. Glendale will be on the 19th. That is this coming Saturday. Phoenix Metro Center on the 26th. and then Arizona Mills in Tempe on November the 2nd. All you have to do is go to our Facebook page at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. There is a post there with all the links. You select the one that is closer to you, the one you want to attend, and all you do is click on that link and register. If you do not have internet and you're not able to register online through internet, call me later on after the show at 480-414-7637, 480-414-7637, and I'll be glad to register you. We still have space. Capacity is 160 in Glendale, 120 in Phoenix, and 120 also in Tempe. Dr. Dimas, let me ask you the question that I actually started to, or I did ask you before we went on break. You taught history for how long? How many years?
20 years.
And already as with a doctorate, as a PhD, or even before?
No, well, the first year I taught at Phoenix College, I was all but dissertation, and I finished it after that first year. So basically, I was PhD.
Pretty much most of it, you taught it as a professor, as a PhD.
Yes.
As a doctor. I have expressed this several times that people who know their history are different. They're just different. And the question is, in those 20 years, did you see, if we can call them, students transform? In other words, transformations of students that you taught as they got into the history, as they were learning it. What was the reaction in these students? Because I know that it obviously affected you to know your history. That's no doubt about that. But did you see similar reactions in the students that you taught?
Yes, I did. I wouldn't say that it was all because of me, but in our interaction, because we did a lot of interacting in class, they could put their own experiences and compare them to what we were discussing in class. And I like to keep it pretty wide open. And what I found is that, first of all, when you're in the community college, you got the people from the barrios, from the different neighborhoods, at different age groups. You have veterans that come back, they have a different perspective. And yet they're all in the class learning at the same time and exchanging ideas with each other. I had the good fortune to eventually become the advisor to MECHA, Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán.
Right.
And they really took off. The leadership of the older students with the younger ones, those who had never been out of their neighborhoods to the ones that had been around the world, they took off. They were quite active in the community, and Phoenix College hosted the first national MECHA conference hosted by a community college in the country. They were that active, and they became the leadership of that organization in the state of Arizona. I hate to say that to the universities, but basically that's what happened at that point. And so, yeah, it does make a difference in how people see their lives, and they can see, well, this is how it happened. This is why it's this way.
Now, there's another, experience that I believe is evident in many, where there seems to not be a reconciliation of the American part and the Mexican part. And I know we are supposed to say Latino, but in this particular documentary, it focuses on the Mexican community. So I'm sure, obviously, that you know this. I mean, the American part, especially on younger, they seem to sometimes not be they don't want to be associated with Mexico. They prefer to see themselves as Americans. I believe the older generations, perhaps a little bit, they embrace it. So could history help in that reconciliation process to embrace the whole enchilada, both parts of who the Mexican Americans are?
Oh, I think so. And what you described is not one generation or another.
Okay.
It's a continuing transformations that are taking place. Because much of the older generation, well, older, I hate, I think I'm so young, but then I look in the mirror, But the older generation, the vatos that came from the barrio, they went to World War II, they came back, and they were kind of a hybrid, if you will. They'd already fought, they've been changed, they weren't going to take the crap that they took before.
Okay.
And
they felt they had to pay their dues, so to speak, as Americans. They had fought for this country.
That's right. And so we were Americans, And then the transitions start taking place because you have the temporary Bracero program, which turned out to be a multi-decade program, where you have this continuing need for Mexican labor that developed the western half of the country, at least.
Right.
And so you have this continuation of puro Mexicano coming in with this transition that's already taken place in others. So, I think as you go along, you'll start, accepting certain things. I mean, look, back in the 1920s, there's some person who was writing and says, "Como quiero Mexico, Mexico lindo." Pero mis chamacos, they call me papi, and they listen to, jazz, and that's, so the technology. Everyone wants to belong, and some people want to belong in one way, and others, and some people can't mesh the two together. And so, and some people actually, like we said before, they feel. Some have felt ashamed. In fact, I had students say, "I don't know if I deserve to come to school," or that sense within them, that ache within them, that takes place. So it's a continuous process. It's a continuing process that's taking place. Kind of
normal.
I think it's normal, and I think it's also crazy where people say, "Well, they got to quit talking Spanish and start talking English," when no generation has ever done that.
Right.
I mean, when you take a look at the European immigration, they go for generations speaking their language. In fact, it wasn't until World War I that the Germans were really starting to feel the backlash of them continuing to speak German. And so, this transition from one language to another, or maybe this transition into fully bilingual, it's a multi-generational process. And then when we take a look at what the future, holds for us, our trade with Mexico is getting more and more important, regardless of what people say.
Right.
And the facility with the Spanish language is becoming even more important now. So,
one thing that I believe, picked up from my conversations with you, Dr. Dimas, is the element of economy. There seems to be the factor of economy playing into all this.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Even George Washington was talking about unifying the country through its interests. We're talking about economic interests, because you get rid of nobility, and then what do you have? The ability to have a good life. And what's that involved? Well, to be able to enjoy life, but also an economic structure that allows you to have a good life. And so when people see that their advantage is to hold others down, they do that. When they see that it's to their mutual advantage to help uplift everybody, they do that too.
Okay. They embrace everybody.
Yeah. And it's the economy, how it evolves is a major factor in how the politics evolve around the economics of it. And within that, the politics, how justice, that sense of justice, is built into it. Because if you have a society without justice, and every society purports to project justice, if you don't have that sense of justice, in the end, you don't have a society.
Right. So could you say that the factor of economic factor is even stronger than the moral one?
That's
Because
with some people, yes.
a lot of times we want to play by morals, right? Oh, this is wrong. How can they do that? How can we do this? But you're the point that I've learned from you in all this is that the economy plays an amazing role in how in the evolution of a country and how people from the outside come in and kind of blend and all that. But morals, a lot of times there seems to be a part of us that want to believe that no, it has to be. I mean, we have to be good people. So, but then the economy gets on the way.
Well, that's where you have the politics the politics meshing with the economy, because again, if you have no sense of morals or ethics, you can't have a sense of justice. And if you don't have a sense of justice, your society falls apart. So, we have a tendency to have our society specialize in, okay, here's the economic portion, here's the ethical portion, here's the moral portion. Here's where we tie our social structure here. No, it's all one enchilada, And so a society without morals in its economic structure will not last.
It has to be conjugated. The two elements have to be present.
Yeah, and that's where politics come in. People talk about free economics, No, you always have rules. I mean, a gangster, it takes advantage of his economic opportunity, right? So if our whole society is nothing but sharks, can we have any ethical relationships with each other? So you have to have a sense of inclusion, that shared story that allows us to be one, that allows people to go out and make their cash if they want to, allows others who don't want to make all their cash enjoy a good life also.
We have to go on the last break, Pete. So shared story. I like that. I've heard you mention it. So we all have to be we all have to understand that we have a shared story.
We have a shared story,
and that we have to be inclusive of that shared story. Just the very fact that we're here,
There is no. Everybody who is here is participating in the economy, whether you personally like them or not. They are, if they're doing things cheaply, they're subsidizing you in what you want to do. It may not be just,
right,
but that's what's happening.
Right. I hear. So economy sometimes, morals sometimes. Have to be both present all the time.
And inculcated within you.
Right. Let's take our last break. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The topic today is Arizona's Mexican Heritage, an American Story by Dr. Pete Dimas. Please join us for the last segment, and more than that, even the movies is coming up this Saturday. For 3 consecutive Saturdays, you can go to our Facebook page, AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Find those links and register, and you'll meet Dr. Pete Dimas, and of course I'll be there as well. We'll be right back. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Let me remind you that we are screening episode 1 of Arizona's Mexican Heritage, an American Story, and we would like you to join us. We still have room at the theater in Glendale, Westgate, but the way to register is to go to our Facebook page at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The post is there, and the links are there. Let me give you my phone number once again, in case you are not able to use internet and you would like to go. We'll be glad to register you, but you have to call me and then I'll register you. It's 480-414-7637. 480-414-7637. So let me ask you a couple more questions because again, this is the last segment and it's going to be finishing pretty soon. So again, you mentioned Arizona. Can you tell us a little bit? And I know, or I don't remember how much of the Arizona part you go into on the first episode. Perhaps that may come in the second episode or what have you. But what can you tell us? What will you cover in your documentary about the Mexican part of this heritage?
Oh, that's a question. Well, first of all, we need to understand that the heritage is thousands of years old here. Now, we are connected with trade routes to central Mexico or Mesoamerica. We have an empire that is set up in central Mexico, the last one being that of the Mexica or the Aztecs. We have the rise of the Spanish, who are basically the inheritors of many of the ancient civilizations, also inheritors of Muslim knowledge in Spain. In other words, they had the latest science. They are the inheritors of a 700-year war against Muslims and themselves. And so we have warriors with technological skills coming over. We have an empire. An empire means that some people don't like you, which means that the Spanish ally themselves with the dissident parts of the Aztec Empire to conquer the empire. And they weren't stupid people. They knew there were millions of them that could kill the Spanish, but disease comes in, disrupts the whole process. We have the establishment of the New Spain, Nueva España. But then what really transforms the world is that endless supply of silver in all those mountain ranges going north from central Mexico. Because you understand, you look at the map, the boundaries don't go east and west, they go north and south. The rivers go north and south. And so you have this movement that eventually ends up in New Mexico by the 1598. And basically you have the establishment of the mission system, which basically justifies the Spanish presence in the Indian world, the native world. You have the mining empire. You have the reality that in the East Coast you have the expansion of the I'd call it the non-religious expansion, the commercial expansion of Western civilization. And part of that, especially dealing with the Mexican area, is the evolution of the cotton culture, which means slaves, which means more land in order to be able to grow the cotton, to buy the slaves, and that sort of thing. That society will clash with the pre-existing Mexican Southwest. I know I'm jumping real quick, and that'll get us into the Mexican War, where Mexico will lose over half its territory to the United States, leaving the former Mexicanos or Españoles or whatever you want within the United States. They still having their structures then become Americans continuing their frontier wars, you know, the Athabascan Wars, the Apache Wars. And you also have the Oldam that are part of that struggle along with the Mexicanos and alliance that's going on there. And eventually, during the Civil War, it's going to be the Oldam, the Maricopas, the Mexicanos, who are providing much of the defense of the American interest in Arizona during the Civil War. That's what's going to happen. And even the establishment of Arizona is dependent on volunteers from Nuevo Mexico who escort the first territorial governor into Arizona. So even in that situation, you need the former Mexican citizens to be able to promote the creation of the Arizona Territory. I mean, I tried to do it real fast.
Right. Now, the last question, or at least maybe second to the last.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always been intrigued at the scenario of what was going on in Spain, and what was going on in the, I don't know if I'm going to use the right terminology, the Aztec world, in Europe, and then in Mexico, what is now in Mexico. what was the situation in each place that was the I guess that allowed for the encounter? I mean, there had to be some situations in each place.
Well, there's a number of things. In Spain, what you have is the end of the Reconquista, 700 years of war in Granada, 1492. In Granada and in Spain, 1492, la gramática de la lengua castellana, or the grammar of the Castilian language, which we call Spanish today, which meant, of course, if everyone had the same rules, you can communicate what you need everywhere in what becomes the empire. You have Columbus coming over in 1492. All of these things happening at the same time. The Spanish having the technology, and they think that God chose them because, they defeated the Muslims. In the Americas, in central Mexico, in Anahuac, you have the Mexica Empire. They too have their chosen people scenario with Huitzilopochtli and continuous warfare, expanding their empire. Okay, so you have a people who believe they're chosen, who are supreme in Europe by that time, coming to Anahuac or central Mexico, and a lot of people who don't want to be dominated by the Mexica. So what you have is one system has its vision of what it's doing, another system has its vision of what's going on, and you have millions of people who basically will get rid of their dominant force, being the Aztecs, but not knowing how many Españoles there are. That insecurity of the numbers is one aspect of it. The massive die-off from disease, because the Spanish bring smallpox and other diseases that just decimate the Indian perspective. The allies of Cortés, they figure they can kill the Spanish if they step out of line, except that those microbes don't care who they eat. So they decimate the leadership, all the peoples of central Mexico. So now it's almost like their religion is must be inferior to the one of the Spanish. You know how people interpret things.
Right.
And so you have a situation where the Spanish have a solid understanding of who they are, and the other world subject to the disruption that comes from all that death and dying of disease. And that starts right at the beginning when you have the conquest of Tenochtitlan. Disease plays a major role in the so-called Spanish.
Right.
It's really the rebellion.
So very briefly, we're almost out of time. What were the Spanish thoughts? Is it factual that they literally came just to take whatever they could find in precious metals, if you will? And is it true? I mean, what were the Indians thinking? I mean, in this encounter, what was each one thinking?
One not knowing who the other one was.
Okay.
I don't believe all that stuff about they thought they were gods.
Okay.
The Spanish, God wants them to come and convert everybody to be Christians.
That's their mentality.
Yes, but they also, God takes care of those who help themselves, right? And so they're going to, part of the European warfare is the idea, okay, you go and conquer, and you get paid by whatever you get out of the booty.
Okay.
And so, yeah, God likes them, and they're the chosen people. But, unfortunately, if you don't win, you're not going to get a just outcome.
Right. And how about the Indians? What were they thinking? I mean, when they see this, Spaniards.
It's difficult.
Just trying to interpret the whole situation.
Trying to interpret the whole thing. When you look at it, there were arguments. Let's kill them all now. And others saying, we can use them. I'm thinking of the Tlaxcaltecos.
Right.
And everyone blames them for the conquest, but it was more than that.
Well, I believe we've managed to whet the appetite of folks, and we are about time, and we have to go off the air now. But let me remind you, this is a documentary that we will be showing. This Saturday, and please do visit our page at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. We will be showing the first episode. All the information that you need is on our page. Please visit the page and join us. Dr. Pete Dimas, of course, is going to be there. And remember that it'll be back to back to back, 3 Saturdays back to back. Pick the one that works best for you. And we'll see you there. This is all the time for now. This was AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. See you on Saturday. See you next time.